Hey guys, Rusty here. I'm going to be showing you every single mount that you can attempt weekly per character in World of Warcraft for a grand total of 50 friggin' mounts. Guys, that is a lot of mounts to farm out right now. I mean, what else are you going to do in the game? You're going to do those Kor'thia dailies, those Maw dailies? I'd rather play Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Snooze fest. Farm these mounts, nothing better to do in the game. Siler, by the way, this video is dedicated to you. Alright guys, let's get right into the guide. So I'm going to break this video up in the same way that I did with other videos like this, and we're just going to go each mount by expansion, starting with Classic, ending with Shadowlands. So, right in the Classic, the first mount is going to be the Onyxian Drake, which does come from Onyxia's lair, any difficulty, located in Dustwallow Marsh. You go in there, you kill Onyxia, and she does have a chance to drop the Onyxian Drake. While this was reintroduced in Wrath of the Lich King, technically the raid is a Classic raid, so I am including this in the Classic section. So, Onyxian Drake comes from Onyxia, easy enough, attempt that once per week. Now, I wasn't really sure if I was going to include these next 4 mounts, but they are technically weekly attempt mounts, so I am going to include them. And that is the 4 Ahn'Qiraj battle tanks, the Qiraji battle tanks that comes from the AQ-40, the Temple of Ahn'Qiraj. So, head over to Southern Silithus, and of course, as always, just go to where I am located on the map, that is the raid location, and you're going to go into AQ-40, the Temple of Ahn'Qiraj, and these 4 mounts drop from any of the trash mobs. You're going to just go in there, you're going to until you get all 4 of the resonating crystals, the red one being the rarest, green, then blue, then yellow. These mounts are only usable in the raid, but if your goal is something like the 400 mount achievement, it does count towards that. And they are, technically, you can only attempt them once per week, 1 per week of clearing the raid. By the way, these are 1 per week per character for all of these mounts. You can farm them on alts. Let's move on to Burning Crusade. First mount for TBC is going to be the Fiery Warhorse. Now, this mount does drop from Attunement the Huntsman, the very first boss of Karazhan. So head over to Deadwind Pass and just go right in, and straight ahead in the stables is going to be Attunement the Huntsman. Kill him on as many characters you want. Again, you can only do this once per week per character, so you can farm this on alts for a chance at the Fiery Warhorse. The second and final weekly attempt mount for TBC is going to be the Ashes of Alar. This does drop from Kael'thas Sunstrider in Tempest Keep or the Eye, so that is located in Netherstorm, as usual. Show you where it is on the map. You just go in the raid, you can head straight to Kael'thas. He's a long fight still, even farming him now, but you just kill Kael'thas, and he has a chance to still drop one of the coolest mounts in the game, in my opinion. But that's it for TBC. Let's move on to Wrath of the Lich King. So the first 2 mounts we're going to cover for Wrath are going to be first the Blue Drake, which is a Blue Drake, and the Azure Drake, which is kind of like a darker Blue Drake, except with a little bit of armor. Both of these mounts do come from Malygos in the Eye of Eternity. Any difficulty, by the way, he has a chance to drop both mounts. The raid being located in the Boring Tundra over in Koldara. It's basically on the upper portal. Of course, we'll show you where that is located in the video. But simply, you're to go in there, flop Malygos around a little bit with your Wang, and then you just loot the mount. You just go in there and you loot the mount. Obviously, it's not a 100% drop chance. When I'm recording this video, though, I did actually get the Blue Drake to drop. There's a bonus mount, though. It's actually my 3rd Blue Drake to drop. But that'll piss some people off. But anyways, both these mounts come from Malygos. The next mount we're going to look at is going to be the Grand Black War Mammoth. Now, this one is really annoying to farm. This one does come from the Vault of Archivon. Now, this raid is located in Wintergrasp. However, in order to enter the raid, your faction needs to be in control of Wintergrasp, so it can be a little annoying. You have to wait. If your faction's not in control, wait for Wintergrasp to activate, and you can actually solo the open world battleground. Do that, you could go into the raid, and this mount has a chance to drop from all 4 of the bosses. So, kill all 4 of the bosses on as many characters per week as you can. Otherwise, you might have to wait for Wintergrasp for your faction to be back in control of Wintergrasp. This one's a little bit annoying. So the next 2 mounts are going to be the Black Drake and also the Twilight Drake. Now, I wasn't really sure if I was going to put these in, as they are 100% drop chances, but technically they are weekly attempts. So to get ahead of the comment section, because I know people will bring it up if I don't, I am going to put these in the video. Now, both of these mounts come from the Obsidian Sanctum. 25 player drops the Twilight Drake, 10 player drops the Black Drake. Both of these drop from Satharon, 3 Drakes, meaning those 3 Twilight Drakes around the what do they call it? The sides. There you go, that's the word. The sides of the raid. Don't kill them. Just go in there, just slap Sathron across his face, cut his head off, and you will have a 100% drop chance to loot the mounts. Again, Black Drake comes from 10 player. Twilight Drake comes from 25 player. You can only farm these once per week, hence the weekly attempt. But you could farm, I don't know, the Black Drake on your main character. Then if you have an alt and you want to wait till next week to get the Twilight Drake, you can then just go on another alt and do it on 25 player. No problem. These are technically weekly attempt mounts, but they're 100% drop chances. So the next mount we're going to look at is going to be Invincible. Cue the invisible jokes in the comment section. Now this mount drops from 25 player heroic Lich King. So head over to Icecrown Citadel in Icecrown, set the difficulty to 25 player heroic, clear the raid all the way up to the Lich King, enjoy a super long RP, which can get annoying while you're farming. Good thing the RP is still really cool to this day, and the Lich King does have a chance to drop Invincible on 25 player heroic difficulty. The final Wrath of the Lich King mount we're going to look at is going to be Mimiron's head. This does drop off Yogg-Saron in Ulduar. Ulduar being located in northern Storm Peaks, so just head over there. You can head on in. There's only one difficulty for Ulduar now, so you can just go on in and clear all the way to Yogg-Saron. Now, as far as I know, the mount does drop from Yogg-Saron 0 lights, essentially the hard mode Yogg, so don't talk to any of the Titan Keepers after you defeat them. They'll be standing above prison. Don't talk to any of them. Go in there without any of the help of the Titan Keepers, and Yogg-Saron does have a chance to drop Mimiron's head. That will do it for Wrath of the Lich King. Let's move on to Cataclysm. Now, the first mount we're going to look at for Cataclysm is going to be the Drake of the South Wind. This mount comes from Ahn'Qiraj, the Windlord, which is located in the Throne of the Four Winds. This is located in southern Oldham. It's all the way up in the air, though. You need to fly to it, and this drops from any difficulty of the raid, 25 player, 10 player, normal, heroic, doesn't matter. You can do on any difficulty you want. Go in there, kill the Conclave of the Wind, then you kill Ahn'Qiraj, and he has a chance to drop the Drake of the South Wind. I should note, even though if you have N'Zoth invasions active in Oldham, it doesn't matter. You don't have to revert if you don't want to. You could still go to the raid, no problem. Let's move on to Firelands. Now, there's two mounts that come from Firelands. The first one is going to be the Flametalon of Alysrazor, which is basically the fire version of the cock mounts. And the final one is going to be the Pureblood Firehawk. Again, my opinion, one of the coolest looking mounts in the game. I love the Pureblood Firehawk. Now, head over to Firelands in Mount Hyjal. Now, you can farm these on heroic and normal mode in the same week, although once per week, right? So once per normal, one normal per week, and one heroic per week on 25 player or 10 player, doesn't matter. Now, the Flametalon from Alysrazor drops from Alysrazor, shocking enough, and then the final mount, the Pureblood Firehawk, does drop from Raggy Poo. By the way, best thing ever is seeing him, like, who knew he had feet? So there you go. You can farm those two mounts from Firelands. Now, the final three Cataclysm mounts all come from Dragon Soul. These mounts, the first one being Experiment 12B, another really cool looking Drake mount. And the final two mounts being the Blazing Drake and also the Life Binder's Handmaiden. All three of these mounts do come from Dragon Soul. The Lifebinder's Handmaiden only drops on heroic mode. The Blazing Drake drops on any difficulty, as well as Experiment 12B. So head over to the Caverns of Time. Then you're going to head over to the right section where all the Cataclysm stuff is. I guess there's another section too, but head over to the right, enter Dragon Soul. And again, you're going to want to do this on 25 player heroic, since that, it can also be 10 player heroic, but you want to make sure it's on heroic, as that's the difficulty that has the chance to drop all three mounts. Now, Experiment 12B drops off Ultraxian, to basically the giant purple dragon. Go ahead and kill him. He has a chance to drop the mount. The final two mounts being Lifebinder's Handmaiden and the Blazing Drake. Both of these mounts do drop from Madness of Deathwing, assuming you are on 25 heroic. Again, Lifebinder's Handmaiden does not drop on normal difficulty. So, go ahead, farm these three mounts from Dragon Soul, and that'll do it for Cataclysm. Let's move on to Mist of Pandaria. So for Mist of Pandaria, let's start with the 4 World Boss mounts, which are some of the rarest mounts in the game to currently have. Now, the first one is going to be the Son of Galleon, which, believe it or not, drops from Galleon in the Valley of the Four Winds. Just head over to where I am on the map. All these World Bosses have about a 15-minute respawn time, so you'd wait there, and you could kill it once per week for a chance at the mount. The second one is going to be the Heavenly Onyx Cloud Serpent, and this comes from the Shah of Anger over in Kunlai Summit. So you can head over to where I am on the map and camp it for a little bit, and then just kill the Shah of Anger, and he has a chance to drop the mount. By the way, I should mention, for all of these world bosses, the mounts can also be bonus rolled if you have the tokens. Now, the third world boss mount is going to be the Cobalt Primordial Direhorn, and this does drop off Undasta over in the Isle of Giants. The Isle of Giants is the small island north of Kunlai Summit. You can fly there if you don't have the flight point unlocked. Kill Undasta, and there's a chance to drop the mount. The final world boss mount being the Thundering Cobalt Cloud Serpent. This drops from Nalak the Stormlord. He is located in the Isle of Thunder, near the Throne of Thunder raid entrance. You can kill him for a chance at that awesome Cloud Serpent. And again, guys, all these mounts, if you have the bonus roll tokens, they can absolutely be bonus rolled. So essentially, you have 2 chances per week to get the mount. And this is, of course, per character. Now, if you ended with Nalak getting the Thundering Cloud Serpent, you could actually go right into Throne of Thunder for our next 2 mounts. Now we're going to be looking at 2 mounts that come from Throne of Thunder. The first one is going to be the Spawn of Horridon, which is a really cool Direhorn. The second mount is going to be the Clutch of Ji-kun, which, of course, spawned a really amazing World of Warcraft video. So, let's head over to Throne of Thunder, which, believe it or not, is located on the Isle of Thunder. It's basically right where you just killed Nalak, if you just watched that part. But head over to where I am, and you can set the raid difficulty to anything you want. It does have a chance to drop on both difficulty and sizes. So you just head in there, and you can get the mounts. The first mount being the Spawn of Horridon. This comes from the second boss, Horridon, believe it or not. So go ahead, kill him, and he has a chance to drop that mount. The Clutch of Ji-kun, very similar, comes from Ji-kun. So kill Ji-kun, and he has a chance to drop the Spawn or the Clutch of Ji-kun. So there you go. Kill those 2 bosses. There's 2 mounts that you can farm weekly in the Throne of Thunder. Let's head over to the next one. So the next mount we're going to look at is going to be the Astral Cloud Serpent, which is basically your little sparkle noodle. Really cool looking mount. Head over to Mogushan Vaults, which is located in Kunlai Summit. Once again, you can set the raid to any difficulty you want. It does have a chance to drop from all difficulties and sizes. And this does come from Elegon, which is basically another sparkle noodle. Essentially, the boss just drops itself as a mount. So you go in there, kill Elegon, loot the chest, and he has a chance to drop the mount from the chest. Now, the final Mr. Pandaria mount is going to be the Kor'kron Juggernaut, which is just a mechanical scorpion. Really, really cool mount. Absolutely love this one. Too bad it comes from Mythic Siege of Orgrimmar, specifically Mythic Garrosh Hellscream. Now, head over to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, and you can just swim down, even if the N'Zoth invasion is active, by the way. You don't need to reset it. You can if you want, but you don't need to reset it. You just swim down into the raid, or if you're in the old version, just go right into the raid, set the Mythic difficulty, clear the slug that is Siege of Orgrimmar. It's a very long clear time, even farming it now. Kill Garrosh Hellscream, and he does have a chance to drop the Kor'kron Juggernaut. And that will do it for Mr. Pandaria. Let's move on to Warlords of Draenor. Now, WoD only has 3 mounts that you can farm weekly, so let's knock these out real quick. The first one is going to be another world boss mount. This is going to be the Solar Spirehawk, and this does drop from Rukmar, which spawns in the spires of Iraq and southern Draenor. Now, the boss does fly around essentially the northern area of the spires of Iraq. However, I recommend just camping where I am on the map, on essentially like this little rock spire thing, as it's near his actual spawn point, or I guess it's her actual spawn point. So if she spawns, you can pull her when she spawns, or you can wait for her to fly to you, and then you can just simply kill her on the rock for a chance at the Solar Spirehawk. Now, the next mount is going to be the Ironhoof Destroyer, which is essentially an armored up cleft hoof with some fire on it. It's a really, really cool looking giant mount. I absolutely love this mount. This drops from Blackhand on Mythic difficulty, so head over to Northern Gorgrond, where I am on the map, and that is where Blackrock Foundry, the raid, is located. Set it to Mythic, head on in, clear the raid, or skip to Blackhand if you have the skip unlocked. Kill Blackhand on Mythic difficulty, and it has a chance to drop the Ironhoof Destroyer. Now, the third and final mount for Warlords of Draenor that you can farm weekly is going to be the Felsteel Annihilator, which is essentially just a green version of the Lightforged Warframe, or I guess the Lightforged Warframe is a light version of that, but you get the point. It's a really cool looking mechanical mount. This drops off Mythic Archimon in Hellfire Citadel. Head over to Tanan Jungle, where I am on the map. Difficulty rate of the raid is set to Mythic. Clear all the way to Archimon, or skip the Mannoroth and then him if you have the skips unlocked. Kill Archimon on Mythic, and he has a chance to drop the mount, and that will do it for Warlords of Draenor. Let's move on to Legion. So a quick shirt and time of day change later, we are going to focus on Legion mounts. Now, the first 2 are going to be dungeon mounts, or dungeon mounts, as this comes from the Return to Karazhan Mega Dungeon in Legion, so you can head back over to Karazhan and Deadwind Pass in the Eastern Kingdoms make sure your dungeon difficulty is set to mythic difficulty, and then you could head on into the dungeon. Once you're there, don't open the doors right away until you are ready, as this will start an internal timer. Now, the two mounts you're going to be farming from here is going to be the Smoldering Ember Wyrm, which is a drop chance from Nightbane, and also Midnight, which is essentially an updated version of the Fiery Warhorse, right? Which, believe it or not, also drops from Attunement the Huntsman in the Legion version of Karazhan, being returned to Karazhan. Now, we're going to focus on Nightbane first. We'll touch on Attunement in a second, as Nightbane does require essentially the complete, basically this dungeon's version of the hard mode. And once you open the wooden doors, this will start an internal timer where you need to kill the Opera event and collect crystal within 8 minutes. Now, I will speed this up in the video of where you guys want to go. Just follow the pathing I take. I'll also try and explain it as best as I can for you guys. So once you open the doors, simply make a right, and you're just going to want to keep going down until you eventually get to the Opera boss. You do need to kill the Opera boss. This is one of the 2 required bosses you need to kill in order to access. Go ahead, kill the Opera event. Once you do there, just keep following the path that I take until you eventually get to where the audience is, and right in front of the stage, you will have your first purple crystal. Go ahead, make sure you're not in combat, by the way. Click the crystal once, just let the channel finish. Don't click it twice, sometimes it can interrupt the channel and then you have to restart, it's annoying. Make sure you only click it once, let the channel finish, and you will gain a buff with another duration. You need to click the 4 other crystals before this expires. Don't worry, once you click one, it'll essentially add on time to the buff. So once you do that, just keep going straight to where I am. You're going to make a left heading towards the Maiden of Vigilance, and right before you actually get to the boss, you're going to make another left into another room where all the hookers are, and essentially you're just going to make sure you're not in combat. You can clear the area around the crystal, and in there is going to be your second crystal. Just run out of the room, and then essentially you're just going to backtrack towards Morose. Simply just jump over the edge once you're there, and once you're at Morose, as usual, kill him off. Now, Morose is going to do 2 things. He's going to drop his keys. Make sure you click on the keys. You'll need these in order to access the Curator. And also, right behind where he is standing, the 3rd crystal will spawn. Now, after you kill Morose, you're just going to want to follow where I go, and this is essentially you're heading back to the entrance of the old raid, or where you would enter the old raid, which is, right near the stables. You don't have to do attunement yet. I recommend holding off on him. Don't do attunement yet. Just go to the spider area, and all the way in the back of the spider area is going to be your 4th crystal. You could click on that. Again, guys, make sure you are not in combat when you do this. Some of the webs, if you walk on them, all the webs, if you walk on them, will spawn a spider that might put you in combat. So definitely make sure it's clear before you click that 4th crystal. And after you get the 4th crystal, you should have 4 stacks of debuff at this point. There is also a portal down there that if you click on, will bring you right back to the entrance of the dungeon. So definitely make sure you do that. And once you do that, instead of making a right this time towards the Opera event, you would make a left heading up towards the Curator, just climbing up and up and up until you eventually get over to the Curator, and this is the 2nd required boss to kill. So once you're there, simply just kill off the Curator, and once he dies at his feet, will spawn the 5th and final crystal. Go ahead, click on the crystal, and you will gain a new 5-minute buff on where your buffs are, and you're just going to head back to the dungeon entrance, so just simply backtrack. And then basically you're going to make the left from the entrance, and instead of going up the Curator, you're going to want to go under the ramp and basically out to the Master's Terrace. And if you did this correctly, Medivh should be standing there. You talk to him, click on his dialogue, and after about, I think it's like a minute and a half of RP, Nightbane will spawn. He's a very easy boss to solo in current level and gear. Go ahead, kill him. And the way the drop chance for this mount works is that it's a 20% drop chance per person in the dungeon that doesn't have the mount. So if you do this in a group of 5, it is a 100% drop chance. If you do this solo, it is a 20% drop chance for the Smoldering Ember Wyrm. So still a very, very high drop chance even if you do this solo. Absolutely recommend doing it solo because it's really easy to do, and it's still a 20% drop chance, and you can do this weekly. Now, the 2nd mount from Karazhan, Midnight, which comes from Attunement, well, guess what? After you kill Nightbane, you could simply head down the stairs, which are right on the Master's Terrace, heading over to the stables. Look who's there, Attunement the Huntsman, and he does have a chance to drop Midnight, which, of course, you could farm weekly. So there you go. There are the 2 mounts from Return to Karazhan. Smoldering Ember Wyrm coming from Nightbane, and Midnight dropping off Attunement the Huntsman. Let's move on to the raid mounts. So the first 2 Legion raid mounts we're going to look at are going to be the 2 Infernal mounts. Now these are going to be the Felfire Infernal, which is going to be the green version of the mount, and also the Hellfire Infernal, which of course is going to be the red version of the mount. And both of these do come from Gul'dan in the Nighthold. Now the Felblaze Infernal, the green one, drops on all difficulties except LFR, so there's normal, heroic, and mythic. You could do those once per week for a chance at the Felblaze Infernal. The red one drops on Mythic Gul'dan only. It is technically possible for Mythic Gul'dan to drop both mounts at the same time, by the way. So you're going to want to go in there and you're going to want to essentially kill Gul'dan on normal, heroic, and mythic every single week for a chance at the Felblaze Infernal, and mythic once per week, of course, for the Hellfire Infernal. At current gear levels and being at level 60 with especially all the player power right now, Mythic Gul'dan is pretty soloable. He can be a little tricky with his last phase, but to summarize him for you guys, just save all your DPS cooldowns for the Demon Within, the very last phase of Mythic Gul'dan, and you should be able to kill him no problem. Otherwise, just get a friend or 2, someone in your guild to help you out, and get these mounts. They're really cool mounts. Now, the next raid mount we're going to look at is going to be the Abyss Wyrm. This one has many reskins. I'm not personally a fan of it, but it is a mount that you can farm weekly, and similar to Nighthold, this comes from the Tomb of Sargeras. This drops off Mistress Sazin, and it drops on every difficulty except LFR. So go in there, normal, heroic, and mythic, and you can kill Mistress Sazin. Mythic Tomb of Sargeras might be a little tricky for some of you to solo right now, although you do only need to kill Mistress, the hardest boss being Fallen Avatar, and kill Jaden. You don't need to kill for the mount. So you go in there, farm them out weekly. Now the final 2 raid mounts are going to be first the Antoran Charhound. Again, Legion had some of the best looking mounts in the game, but the Antoran Charhound is just a really cool looking dog mount with wings. And of course, my personal second favorite mount in the game is going to be the Shackled Urzel. Absolutely love this mount. Really upset I don't have it yet, but I'm gonna keep farming it. Anyways, both of these mounts do come from Antorus the Burning Throne, which is located on Argus. The first one, the Antoran Charhound, does come from the second boss of the raid, the Fellhounds of Sargeras. Simply head over there after Garathi Roadbreaker to kill them, and this does drop on LFR, normal, heroic, and mythic. Essentially, it drops on all difficulties. This one does drop off LFR, so you can farm on an LFR for the Antoran Charhound. Now, the Shackled Urzel drops off of Mythic Argus the Unmaker. Now, currently, guys, Mythic Antorus the Burning Throne is incredibly difficult to solo. It is possible for some classes to do it. However, at this point, guys, I really recommend for now you just bring a couple friends, like even if it's just like 1 or 2 friends, guildmates, someone from Trade Chat or, the group finder to help you out this raid. It is helpful. I do have a guide on my channel that will show you how to solo Mythic Agrimar and Argus if you do have the raid skip unlocked. But even then, you need a lot of gear. It is very difficult to solo right now. It will get easier, of course, but for now, I definitely recommend bringing some friends for Mythic Agrimar and Argus. Mount coming from Mythic Argus, so the Shackled Urzel, absolutely love it. That'll do it for the Legion mounts. Let's move on to Battle for Azeroth. So for BFA, we are going to start off with the dungeon mounts. The first one is going to be Sharkbait, which is the Parrot mount. Go ahead, Tech, make the comment. This drops off the last boss, Harlan Sweet, in Mythic Freehold. So head over to Tiergard Sound, set the dungeon difficulty to Mythic, and a fun fact about this, super fun, the only boss you have to kill is the last boss. You could skip the rest. You just look on the map, just head right over to the last boss, kill him, no problem, and he does have a chance to drop the mount. Simple enough. The dungeons, the BFA dungeons, for the most part, are very easy to solo. One's a little tricky. We'll get on there in a second, though. The second one is going to be the Underrot Krog. Believe it or not, this mount drops from the Underrot. So, head over to Nazmir, and kind of near Oldir, near the raid entrance, you're going to want to fly down. Just follow where I go in the video. Once again, make sure the dungeon difficulty is set to Mythic, and you're going to head on there, and very similar to Freehold, only boss you need to kill, you could skip as much trash as you want, is going to be the last boss. You could ride on over there and just kill the last boss, the Unbound Abomination, and he does have a chance to drop the Underrot Krog. Now, the third dungeon mount we're going to look at is going to be the Tombstalker, which is probably the best raptor-looking mount in the game. Raptor mount in the game. I mean, it's just a mummified raptor. It's awesome. And this drops off the last boss in Mythic King's Rest. Now, King's Rest, you do need to kill every boss. Overall, this dungeon is easy to solo. except the second boss. The second boss currently is difficult to solo. The reason why is you essentially need to kill him in about 35 to 40 seconds, sometimes it varies. Otherwise, he will just despawn. So you need to have the gear and burst DPS to burn him down. Again, if you're struggling with him, I recommend just bringing in a friend or two to help you out. But once you kill him, you could just go kill the third boss, then go to the last boss, King Dazar, and he does have a chance to drop the Tombstalker. Now the next two dungeon mounts both come from the same dungeon. First mount being the Mechagon Peacekeeper, which is one of those robotic spiders, definitely a really cool mount, and the second one being the aerial unit R21X, I believe that's the full name, but it's the aerial unit that has essentially balls for shoulders. You know what I mean there. Anyways, both of these mounts come from Mythic Operation Mechagon, so head over to Rustbolt, set the dungeon difficulty Mythic, and head on in. The Mechagon Peacekeeper comes from the fourth boss, the Aerial Oppression unit, so you can simply go in there once per week, kill the boss, hope he drops the mount. Now, the aerial unit R21X is a little bit different. It drops from King Mechagon. Now, if you do this on regular Mythic, it is a low drop chance, just like all the others, for the boss to drop the mount. However, if you do the dungeon on hard mode, it works similar to Nightbane, where it is a 20% chance per player to get the mount. So if you do it in a group of 5, 100% drop chance. If you solo it, it would be a 20% drop chance. Now, it is technically possible to solo the hard mode. I will leave a guide linked in the description down below that I made for you guys, showing you how you actually solo the hard mode. It can be a little tricky, so I definitely recommend bringing a friend or two for it, but I'll leave that video for you guys down below. And that'll do it for all the dungeon mounts. Let's move on to the raid mounts for Battle for Azeroth. Now, the first two mounts both come from the same raid. First mount being Gmod, which is essentially Gallywix's bedazzled mech suit, and also the Glacial Tidestorm, my personal favorite mount from Battle for Azeroth, and this drops off the Jaina Proudmoore on Mythic difficulty. So, head over to the Battle of the Zara lore for the Horde. It spawns in Zandalar. You just head over to, or the entrance is in Zandalar. Just head to where I am on the map. And for the Alliance, the entrance is in Borealis and Tiergard Sound. Of course, they're just two separate entrances because, right, it's a faction war for a raid. Anyways, Gmod drops off of High King Mechatork, and this drops off LFR, Normal, Heroic, and Mythic. Now, if you do this on LFR, do note it actually technically drops off Jaina Proudmoore, as Blizzard eventually made a change in the expansion to complete the whole wing because people were leaving early for the mount. Every other difficulty, though, it drops off High King Mechatork. The LFR is the only one where it drops off Jaina. And Glacial Tidestorm drops from Jaina Proudmoore on Mythic difficulty only. Now, whether you're doing this for Gmod or Mythic Jaina for the Glacial Tidestorm, currently at the time of making this video in Shadowlands, the raid is just very difficult to solo right now, even on LFR. You're definitely, if you're farming for the Gmod on the lower difficulties, definitely recommend bringing a couple friends with you. It doesn't have to be a super crazy group. High King Mechatork isn't too difficult as long as you're bringing some friends or guildmates. Mythic Jaina is still very difficult. I absolutely recommend, if you're going to attempt her, just bring a full group of 20. I'm sure there's people looking to farm that mount. Just make a group for it and just blast Jaina. She's going to be impossible to solo for a long, long time, essentially until Blizzard makes a change to one of her mythic mechanics. So, there you go for the Battle of the Zara Allure. Now, the final raid mount and mount for BFA in general is going to be the Ny'alotha Allseer, and this simply drops from Mythic N'Zoth. Now, the raid entrance varies. It's either in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms or Oldham, depending where the actual Black Empire version of the invasion is. You could just look on the map for that. You'd set the dungeon to Mythic difficulty, and you can head on in. And again, it does drop off Mythic N'Zoth. Same thing with Mythic Jaina, guys. One, he's going to be impossible to solo for a long time just because of the way one of his mechanics works will cause the boss to despawn. However, even if that wasn't a thing, he's just still really, really hard. Like, I mean, I don't even think anyone is soloing him right now. Point being, you're going to need a full group for him, guys. But there you go. That's where you get the Ny'alotha Allseer. And that's done for BFA. Let's move on to Shadowlands. So the first mount we're going to look at for Shadowlands is going to be the Hand Bamethra, and this comes from the weekly Tormentors of Torghast event. So head over to the mall and either wait for it to be up on your server. Essentially, it's just like a little, basically it's a little marker on your map. I'll show you what it looks like in the video. Or you could actually also look in the pre-made group finder to see if anyone made any groups for you if the event's up on their server. So what this event is essentially just to fill up the bar quest. You kill the elite mobs, and then you fill up the bar. You'll kill the final boss. Very easy event to do. And after you kill the final boss, it does have a chance to drop or give you the Hand of Bamethra, and you can do this once per week, of course, per character. let's move on to the dungeon mounts. And the first one is going to be Marrowfang, and this drops off the final boss of the Necrotic Wake. Make sure the dungeon difficulty is on Mythic. It does only drop Mythic only. Mythic Plus included, by the way, if you're doing this during Shadowlands. So you just go in there, kill the last boss, and he does have a chance to drop the mount. Now, the second dungeon mount from Shadowlands is going to be the Cartel Master's Gear Glider. I had to check the name there for a second. And this does drop off the final boss of Tazavesh, the new mega dungeon in Shadowlands. So you just go in there, and he has a chance to drop the mount. By the way, before anyone in the comments says anything, the hard mode mount is from an achievement, doesn't count, doesn't belong in the video. So there are actually 2 raid mounts to come from Shadowlands, and like a complete baboon, I completely forgot about the Sanctum Gloom Charger, which is one of the new awesome looking horse mounts in Shadowlands. Really, really cool looking mount. Completely forgot it existed though, because I was reminded when a guildmate got it the night before, and I didn't. Anyways, this mount drops from the 9 on any difficulty, yes, including looking for raid. So there you go. Head over to the Sanctum of Domination. You can even do it on LFR right now to farm this mount once per week. Let's move on to the next one. The final mount for Shadowlands, and currently at the time of making this video, the only raid mount, I'm sure they'll add another, is going to be Vengeance, which is essentially an updated version of the Dragonhawk. It's definitely a really cool looking mount, and this drops off Mythic Sylvanas. So if you're in a Mythic raiding guild right now that's pushing cutting edge, go ahead. I mean, it's a 100% drop chance while it's current expansion, right? And I'm sure at the end of Shadowlands, usually the way it goes is that chances are Mythic Sylvanas will be, not soloable, will be puggable. Chances are, I mean, Jaina was, Gul'dan was. I'd be surprised if Sylvanas wasn't, unless we only get a 9.2 and we don't get a 9.3. That might change things up a little bit. So, there you go. And guys, that'll do it for this guide. That is every single mount that you can farm weekly, once per week, per character. So I hope you got a ton of alts to farm these mounts on. I mean, it is a lot of mounts. It's a lot of mounts. It's 50 mounts total that you guys could be farming right now, every single week. I really do hope you guys enjoyed this video. I've worked very hard on it. If you liked it, throw it a like. It makes me happy. Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know which mount's your favorite, which ones you don't have, which ones you have that I don't have. I'm sure some of you will mention that I don't have, but what's his face? The Crackers guy, Sharkbait, that's the parrot. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, remember, Halo 3 is the best Halo, but Halo Infinite was freaking good, guys. That technical preview, it was good. I think it's coming for Halo 3. Alright, guys. Until next time. Later.